Hello and welcome back to Rev Real Estate School. I'm your host, Michael Montgomery, and today we are in for a treat. We have Sean Carpenter coming on the show, and he's a return guest. He's been on previously, and he is got to be one of the best people when it comes to relationship building and nurturing. So he has this line, his tagline that he goes by, which is build relationships, solve problems, and have fun. And he truly lives by this. And he's been in real estate for a number of years, since the 90s, and a coach and a trainer and a speaker. His home base is in Columbus, Ohio. And what you're going to learn on this show is a number of different things. First off, how can we start to think through relationships? How can we start to expand the relationships that we're having? How can we increase the number of touches that we're having within people within our database in a natural way? He also has this wonderful framework called the 4-H Club. And we get into this towards the end of the show, where he goes through the exact system that he uses, that he still uses to this day in order to stay in touch with people. And what you're going to notice in this system is before 9 a.m. in the morning, he's already had upwards of 45 touches. And none of these are reaching out, asking for business. They're all just these friendly little ways that he communicates with people throughout his day. So many fantastic takeaways from this episode. Enjoy this with Sean Carpenter. Sean, how you doing today?
Good, Michael. Always good to chat with you. I appreciate the podcast for many, many years, and I love whether it's a solo show or a guest show. You always get the conversation going and get me thinking. So it's good to be with you.
Amazing. Well, so excited. And actually, you're a repeat guest. You've been on before, and coming back by popular demand, because your approach to real estate is one that is refreshing, and it's also so human, which I think a lot of the listeners of this show also very much have an appeal towards that direction of real estate. But right before we got started here, you and I were discussing this concept of high producing agents, and you do coach a lot of very high producing agents, and you said rising stars as well, which I think rising stars is an interesting term. And what are you seeing when it comes to you coaching these rising stars or high producing agents? What are they doing that you're finding maybe the ones that aren't rising stars yet aren't doing?
Well, one thing they're not doing is they're not listening to the outside noises of things they have no control over, right? And that's settlements, that's laws, that's regulations and rules. What they are in control of is the two things that they control every day is conversations they're having and appointments they're setting, right? And they're really going back to the basics. It's one of my least favorite cliches, back to the basics. Because think about this. If anyone ever says to you, Michael, this year I'm going to get back to the basics. Well, why would you have to get back to them? Why don't you just do the basics and understand that the basics work? And so a lot of the top agents, it's funny when you talk to them, they are having conversations with friends and family. They're talking to people in their neighborhood, in their sphere, at their gym, at their church, in their tribe, and they're just listening for opportunities to add value, to help, to deepen a relationship. And so really it's the how can I have enough conversations so that when someone in my tribe thinks about real estate or hears someone who has a real estate need, they think of me. And, you know, with the millions of agents out there, the thousands of agents in wherever the people are listening to this right now, there are literally 1,000+ agents that their sphere of influence and family members and past clients can think of when they think of real estate. What's going to make your name come up?
And so what do you think it is with these rising stars and top producing agents? Why does their name come up, and maybe the other agent who says, look, I've been trying to have conversations, I'm just not seeing the success. Why does the rising stars name come up and the other agent potentially not?
Well, I think the credibility, seeing results is obviously a critical component of it, right? Just because you're popular and if you're bad at what you do, you know, it doesn't matter. But I think it's are they seeing and hearing your name in lots of different places? So they see it and think of it. And you know, I talk about the 6 channels of communication all the time, Michael, right? There's 6 channels that we can get in front of people, right? There's face-to-face, which is obviously probably the ultimate that you're eventually always leaning towards, is that face-to-face. Now that could be a listing appointment or a buyer counseling session, but it could also be breakfast, coffee, lunch, happy hour, a round of golf, meeting a friend's dog at the dog park, you know, things like that. There's voice to voice, which is kind of the forgotten one these days because a lot of us just don't like to talk on the telephone. There's screen to screen, which is me texting from my screen to your screen. There's inbox, getting in your email inbox. There's mailbox, getting in your postal service mailbox. That's a handwritten note, a postcard, a flyer, a brochure. And then there's social media. And if you think about this, Michael, what the best agents do, subconsciously or on purpose, is they're constantly showing up in all those places. So that the consumer out there in any town USA, they say to themselves, I hear from Michael all the time. I see Michael everywhere. But because they're seeing them in multiple different places, in multiple different channels, in multiple different mediums, that all of a sudden their name just pops up more than other people, right? If I say, when you look at cars, you look at the brand before you look at the dealership that sold it. But in your local towns, you think of the dealership when you see the brand name. You say, oh, that's this dealer, because I hear his jingle on the radio. I see his ads on the TV. I saw his brochure come through my mailbox as I threw it out. But then I saw it on the car, and then I saw a friend had it, and then all of a sudden that's the name you think of when you think of Ford or Chevy in your town. And
that's so interesting.
We do the same things with our business. If we attach our brand, our brokerage, our big box name, and then our personal name is the local dealership, so to speak. And so I just think that the best agents are the ones that are constantly showing up. And sometimes they're talking about real estate, and sometimes they're talking about life. Sometimes they're talking about real estate, sometimes they're talking about life. And whether it's on social media, and think about that, of the 6 channels I just talked about, 4.5 of them happen on this device I'm holding up on our phones, right? I mean, I can get in your inbox here. I can get obviously a texting to you. I can call you here. I can go on social media here, and I could get face to face with you through a video text message or a FaceTime call. The only thing I really can't do through this is, and I can call you. So I can really do almost all 5.5 of them through here. I can't get in your mailbox, right? I can't get in your postal box from here, but I could if I use a tool like Postagram or something like that, where I'm sending you a postcard from here. But so I just think, a long answer to constantly earning top of mind awareness through different channels. And it all boils back down to the relationship I have with the person. If they're a close friend, I've got way more things to talk to them about than real estate. If they're a new friend, I've got the connections that you talk about for years on this show, whether it's the Ford technique or the Hefe technique that you've taught me, which I really like. Just getting people talking and then listening for any potential change that's happening in their lives that gives us a chance to explore or anticipate a real estate move in the near future.
That makes perfect sense. And I really like this visual of just, instead of us just thinking about one form of communication, we got to really open up the bag here to what we have access to. And this analogy with the car dealership, I'm smiling as you're saying this, because isn't it so true that, I see a little dealership name and I know, oh, that's where I got my car. That's where my friend got their car. And in real estate, it's the same thing. How would you, I guess, advise somebody? Let's say that they're getting started, and let's say that they totally agree with this fact that they do need to have more conversations, they do need to have more influence, they do need to be using these 6 methods of communication. But where does an agent start? Let's say that they're brand new even, or they just are listening to this and say, I got to really get my wheels turning. What are some of the first things that you suggest they do to start building these relationships?
Well, it's probably one of the most basic steps is, do they have a database? Right. Yeah. And there's really 4 levels to that. I mean, we can start from the top down. A database is anyone you have contact information for. So I would start, whether you're brand new or newer, is who do you know? Right. And that goes to high school friends, college friends, people you used to work with in your last career before real estate, church, neighborhood, family. And then you start, gathering the information about those people, contact information, right? Name, address, phone number, email. Social media. The next level down is what's called your sphere of influence, right? I know them and they know me, right? So database is really anybody. Spheres, I know them, they know me. Level 3 are your clients, people who have done business with you in the past. And then that golden level at the bottom is our bullseye, which we've talked about before, Michael, is that these are your best people. These are the people that they want you to be successful. They're telling other people about you. And so gathering a database would be where I'd start. Right? If you have 100 names, I would try and get to 150 names. The number I'll give to people, and I use this number living here in the United States. I know this is an international show, but I tell people about 217 people should be in your sphere of influence.
How'd you come to that number?
Because there's about 336 million people in the United States. There's about 1.55 million realtors, which means there's one realtor for every 217 people. Right. So I would start with that number and then add to that. So if you don't have 217, that's okay. You probably know more than 217 people. You just don't have their information in a place, in a database, a CRM. You and Jen have talked a lot about CRMs and having them and using them are two different things, right? A lot of us have it on our house. Some of us hang laundry on it, right? So
It's so true. How would you suggest they go about getting the information? I find oftentimes with new or experienced agents, they know somebody, maybe they have them on social media, they see them at church, but then they're like, okay, I need to get the information. How do I go about asking them for their information in a way that is that doesn't feel salesy, I guess? How do you approach that conversation?
Creepy. Yeah, I think that's I think sometimes you have to use the technologies available to us, right? I mean, we can use our county auditor, our county assessor sites to gather information. We can look on social media. I think once you start putting the database, CRM, Excel spreadsheet, legal pad, Michael, for the first 3 years in my business, my CRM was literally index cards in a recipe box. Right? It was just literally like 155 cards that said Michael Montgomery, right? And where you lived and your address. And I would write my little notes on, and when I finished, I'd go to the backside. And when I finished that, I'd staple a new card. But here's the thing. I touched them every single day. I sat down on my desk and I pulled all my cards out and I went through them and I touched those people on a phone call or back in the day, an email was new or a handwritten note. And so keep adding to that. I mean, it's a infinite game to keep our database updated, right? But a lot of us, if I really audited, here in my office that I'm in today in Cincinnati, Ohio, if I just randomly said, show me your database, you know what a lot of people are going to have? They're going to have names with a phone number, possibly an address, possibly an email address. But some are going to have a name and a phone number, and that's it. Some are going to have a name and an email address, and that's it. Some are going to have a name and a phone number and an email address, but no home address. But what you want is you want your client's name, your address, the physical address where they live, whether it's an apartment or house. You want their phone number, cell number, work number, home number if they have a home number. You want their email address, and most people probably could have two email addresses. They have a work email address at company.com, and they have an at Gmail or at Microsoft or at private email. Then you want, if they have a spouse or partner's name, spouse or partner's cell number, work number, spouse or partner's email address, and personal email address. Now we also want kid's name, pets' names, right? Pets are part of people's families.
Huge.
I can see a lot of people listening to this right now in their cars nodding, saying, yes, they are, right? I want where they work. I want the industry they're in. I want where they went to college. I want their Facebook and their Instagram and their TikTok and their Snapchat. Now, there's people out there listening right now going like, Sean, that's way too much information. Let me ask you a question, Michael. Let's just say that you had 217 people in your list, 217 names in column A on an Excel spreadsheet. How many people do you think you have all that information I just talked about for? Birthdays, anniversaries. Let's just say you had 20. 10% of the people you had that information for. True or false? You know those people more than you know the other 187.
100% true.
True or false? You have more reasons to talk to those people other than real estate.
True.
See, and then what you say is, all right, so let's step back from that imaginary Excel spreadsheet with all that data. And your top 20 people have every column and row filled in. But then you have 187, 197 other names with some of that information. You got almost all their email addresses, almost all their cell numbers, almost all their addresses. You got a couple kids' names, a couple pets' names, a couple where they went to college, a couple where they work, a couple birthdays, anniversaries. Well, here's the good news for the people listening. You have your entire career to fill that spreadsheet in. It doesn't have to get it filled in yesterday. But if over time now, Michael, maybe you make a conscious effort that says every morning when I'm having my cup of coffee, scrolling through social media, my job is to find 5 boxes worth of information to fill in on my big spreadsheet on the wall. And so as you're scrolling through your Instagram, you see your friend just celebrated their anniversary yesterday. So you go to the name on the wall in row 64 and you scroll across and you put their wedding anniversary in there. And then you see someone else got a new puppy named Jake. And you go to their row and you scroll across and you write Jake, Beagle puppy, right? And then you see that they were cheering that their college won the World Series. And so you write that in there. And over time, you start filling in all these things. And then because you realize how valuable that information is, Michael, when you meet somebody new at an open house, when you get that phone call from someone that saw your sign, when you get a personal referral, on your intake, you do a little more questioning up front, saying, what are the names of your kids and when's your birthday, when's your anniversary? So now I've already started that row with 14 of the 23 things or whatever it might be. And I'm starting to have so much more data in my database.
I love this approach. And there's a few things that are coming to mind for me. Like, first off, there's kind of like this image of if I was like a carpenter, which I'm not, and you have your tools, and then you go to make a chair and you realize you need a different set of tools. So you go to Home Depot, you get that tool, and now that tool's in your tool belt, and that just continues to grow over time. But what I love about this is I think probably what stops a lot of agents, you let me know if you see this as well, is just this massive task of filling in 217 and 10, 15 fields for each of these people. And because that task seems so big, they just stop and they say, well, there's no point in even getting started. And what you're saying is you have a whole career to fill this in. Chip away at it over time. Don't think of this as you have to sit down and next week have it completely filled and dialed in. Plus it changes, right? The puppy comes in, they have a new child, and there's more information to fill in as you progress.
Yeah, and sometimes it's just the questions, the conversations that you can get into, Michael. Let's just say I got my virtual spreadsheet in front of me or up on the wall, and I'm having a conversation with you. And I just, small talk about family, occupation, recreation, dreams, hobbies, entertainment, food, environment, things we talk about. And I just say to you something like, Michael, how are the kids doing this summer? And you say, oh gosh, Sean's off to college and Megan is doing this. I just write down Sean and Megan. Right? I didn't say what's Sean's birthday and what's Megan's birthday. That's a little piece I had in there. And then I might, out of conversation, just say, interesting, where's Sean heading off to college this year? Well, he's heading actually back to the University of Virginia. He's going to be a sophomore this year. And I just write that information down, right? And I say, wow, do you guys get down to Charlottesville very often to see him? He goes, oh, we go down every spring to a college baseball game. I say, oh, we love going to my son's baseball games at Mississippi State. And we start talking about baseball. And I just make a note, baseball fan, right? Because now when I pay attention, now that the College World Series is starting this week, as we record this in the States, I'm going to send him a text message saying good luck to the Cavaliers as they head off to Omaha for the College World Series. Now, notice that had nothing to do with real estate. But all of a sudden, it gets my name at the top of his screen on a text message. And what if he just talked to his secretary at work and found out she's getting divorced and needs to sell her condo? Could be right place, right time, right?
Yep.
Or I don't have to have that information and just wait for them to call me. Which I think is what a lot of people that aren't top agents do, is they're very passive about this business because they don't want to be a salesperson, right? They just want to be a order taker when the orders come in.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's talk about that, actually, this active versus passive approach. And so I think once the sheet is filled in, we now have lots of opportunities to reach out. Do you have any strategies for agents who are starting to fill this out on how often they should be reaching out, how active they should be with people in their sphere of influence versus database, how many touch points they should be doing? How do you kind of coach somebody thinking through that problem?
Yeah, obviously, your sphere of influence, your bullseyes are going to get more touches than maybe your past clients. Your past clients are going to get more touches than your sphere of influence A's that are, great people but haven't been clients. So obviously each person is going to flavor to taste their own touches, but I'll just use a rule of thumb because we're talking to a generic audience out there listening. 16 times a year. Now, I know that people are saying, oh my gosh, Sean, that's way too much. Here's my suggestion. 16 times a year at a base, that's 12 somethings. 12 somethings you can automate, right? An email newsletter, a mailing campaign, some 12 touch. I'm not the smartest guy in the world, Michael, but most human beings have one birthday a year. Right? So there's one touch. If they're married or have a spouse or partner, they have a second touch. If they're married and have a spouse or partner, they have an anniversary. And now I just need one more other touch that wasn't like an automated thing. And that could be, if they're past clients of mine, maybe it's the anniversary of when they bought or sold. It's maybe it's a kid's birthday. But then all the other touches become added value. Every social media. Look, when I comment on a social media post, I don't go into my database and say, commented on Michael Montgomery's Facebook post. Those are just added in, right? It's like, when you're counting calories, right? You don't count if you had a cracker, while you were walking in, or you had a little mini candy bar at your lender's office. You probably don't go into your database and count in a mini bite of chocolate, but those are the things that start adding up. So 16 is the number I use. I talk to my people. Once again, I have some people in my database, Michael, that are what I would call sphere of influence C's. They're people I know. I would help them if they reached out to me today, but I'm not expecting them to. We're not close friends, but they're people that I just sort of put in there. They might get 4 to 6 touches a year. Other people might get 75 to 85 touches a year, but it doesn't feel like it's a real estate touch. Buy or sell a house with Sean. It's a birthday touch. It's a congratulations on the good game this weekend by your team. It's a, I saw them at the gym. I see them on the golf course. I waved them across the fairway. It's just, every one of us knows people that they're an outgoing talker, high eye salesperson that just is always engaging with people. They're constantly, the relationship is their oxygen, right?
And honestly, like those are the agents that sell a lot of real estate. But then what would you say to the agent that says, well, Sean, I feel a little bit more on the introverted side, and I'd prefer to, not put myself out there as much. Maybe that comes at the expense of their potential to produce. But how would you help an agent who says they're maybe a little bit more shy, a little bit more reserved? So the whole approach of getting out there and trying to build as many relationships as possible feels a little daunting. Is that something that they should just slowly continue to work through?
Well, or they find people like them, other shy people who aren't going to be volume 11, but they're very comfortable being volume 6. The people that they want to take it slow, get lots of information. Maybe they lead with an educational front, saying, I'm just here to educate people and help you make good decisions, instead of being that gregarious, let's tell stories and rub elbows and take selfies with each other. There are direct salespeople that are very much cut to the chase. Let's do a deal. There are controller side people that are architects, engineers, accountants that want lots of information and they're very system oriented. But they also want the security. So I think knowing yourself, knowing your behavior style is an important aspect. I know you've done some podcasts in the past about behavior styles and personality styles, and it starts by knowing who you are so that you can adapt to who your clients are. I think the introverted side, you may not be the one that stands up at karaoke, but you're at the event talking to the people, not on stage. You're cheering on the people, right? I mean, every baseball team needs a leadoff hitter and a cleanup hitter, but you also need a good 8th and 9th hitter too, right? Yeah.
Well, you know what? It's really interesting because I think that we have this image in our mind of what a salesperson is, and they are like that backslapping gregarious person. And in reality, there's a lot of people that don't necessarily jive with that personality type. And what's coming to mind for me is I would consider myself pretty ambivert. Like I do like my time to myself, but if I'm by myself for too long, I go nuts. But then there's my wife who I work with, and she is deeply on the introverted side. And we've talked about this a lot. And she says, look, like I'm never going to be at the networking event passing out business cards. I'll never do that. But I will sit and I will talk to a friend for 1 hour and we'll have a really good heart to heart. We'll have a nice chat. She loves working with buyers where she can really get to know them and educate them. You said this word, educate. And I think if we are a little bit less on that front, really lean into the education side, that's what she's done. Built a ridiculously big business, just sheerly through education and knowing her product and industry so well. Oftentimes these people can be pretty analytical, and she is.
Yeah. And look, she doesn't have to be doing reels and TikToks, but she could be commenting on people's reels and TikToks. She could be sharing data using Canva or some other tool to put some sort of a infographic, a visual tool that people say, I really like that she posts information, data, she posts educational stuff. And she's not a big salesy person, but I know based on her track record, because she does share results, or I see testimonials or whatever. So there's lots of different ways. And that's the cool thing about our business, Michael. The great thing about real estate, it's different every day. The bad thing about real estate, it's different every day. Right? And so that's where having systems and methods in place to say, look, I've got to, the metaphor I've used a ton is we are like farmers. Right? A farmer doesn't just leave banking or leave insurance and say, I think tomorrow I want to be a farmer and have a crop. They have to work the field. They have to turn the soil. They have to put seeds in the ground. We have to act like farmers every day. We have to put seeds in the ground that could turn into business next week, next month, or next year. And then each day we have to get up and put seeds in the ground and then water and fertilize and crop and prune and water and fertilize and crop and prune. Let me share an example. I closed a deal. It was a year ago, a little more than a year ago, but this was a person who knew lots of realtors. All right, was going through a divorce, called me up and said, "Hey, Carp, we're going through a divorce. Can you help me?" Met with him. It was an unfortunate situation. It was a tough transaction, Michael, but we got the deal done. And a lot of, anxiety because of the position they were in, but we persevered and we got the deal done. He called me after the transaction was done. They'd gone their separate ways. Successful closed transaction. He said, "Sean, I want to thank you for your hard work, and I want to tell you why I chose you as my agent. As you know, I know 15 or 20 realtors because of the role he was in, and I knew many of those other agents." He said, "For almost 17 years, you've been sending my address a handwritten note. You send me a note. You asked me about my wife. You asked me about my kids that you never had even met. But I always knew I could count on a handwritten note coming in my mailbox from you. Didn't know when it was going to show up, but I always appreciated it. Would read it multiple times, would leave it on the counter so that my spouse could see it. And I just always appreciated that. All these other agents told me that they were in real estate, but you made it seem like it wasn't about the business. It was about the person." Now, Michael, let me ask you a question. How many people listening to this right now would handwrite a note to somebody tomorrow if they knew it was going to turn into business? They just didn't know when it was going to turn into business.
Probably 100%.
100% of them.
Probably.
And I don't think I ever wrote a note saying, "Gosh, I hope this is the one that gets a listing." But enough of them built up so that the day he was ready to go, he picked the person who he felt was the right fit for him and his family to get to where they wanted to be. And I look at the ROI on that. Let's just say it was a letter a year, 59 cents, let's say, times 17. Not a bad return on investment, right?
No, not a bad return on investment. So, and I will say for everybody listening, like there's been a lot of people that have came on this podcast, and I still get notes from you, Sean. I still get notes that arrive at my office or at my house, and they sit right beside my computer, and they are just so nice to receive. So it's you're walking the walk too. So let's talk about these notes, because I do think that they're so impactful, yet also agents have this level of concern that they don't want to be sending them because they don't want to necessarily kind of intrude on people's lives, or they don't think people want to receive them. Although I've never received a card that I haven't liked to receive. So I don't know why that kind of gets into our mind, but what's your process when it comes to handwritten cards? Do you have a certain number you send out a day, or how does that work?
Yeah, so let me talk to the listener, because I'm such a podcast nerd. I mean, I listen to your podcast the day it comes out, and so I'm talking to you on the treadmill. I'm talking to you walking through your neighborhood. I'm talking to you driving your car right now. When you get home and check your mailbox today, if there's 5 things in there, 9 things in there, 1 thing in there, and one's a handwritten note, you're opening the handwritten note first. You're probably going to read it a second time. You're probably going to leave it on the counter for your spouse or partner to read. You might have a junk drawer or a basket where you keep handwritten notes that you've got over the years. The impact of them, Michael, is unbelievable. And before someone says, "Well, my handwriting sucks, it's illegible," nobody cares. My grandfather, who passed away, 40 years ago, we used to love getting postcards and notes from my pop, because we would sit around as a family on the couch and try and decipher what the hell he was saying, because his handwriting was so bad that we would literally say, "No, that doesn't say that. It says this." And then we would sound it out and read it out. And I love getting notes from him. So I don't have a thought process. Number one, you've heard me talk about my 4-H club. We can get into that maybe if you want, but I try and do 5 handwritten notes a day. I start with the easiest handwritten note of all time, a thank you note. If I don't have anybody else on my list, I say to myself, do I have anybody from yesterday that I need to send a thank you note to? Just keep it real time. Did I do anything yesterday? Did I run into a service provider? Did someone help me? Anything? Because a thank you note writes itself. You shouldn't have to think too much about a thank you note. And then if there's no thank you notes to write, I just kind of look at my database and say, who haven't I touched in a while? Who haven't I touched through that channel? Because once again, if I just sent you, if the last communication with Michael Montgomery was a handwritten note, I'm probably not going to send a handwritten note to you again. I'm going to send it to somebody else. So my handwritten note basically is it can be on stationery. I very rarely ever use branded stationery for my real estate brand. I usually have personalized stationery for my slogan or something fun, or I just go to the dollar store and get prints of, a dog or a flag or whatever, flowers. And the note is literally, Michael, If I ran into you at the grocery store, at the golf course, at the gym, what would I say? I'd say, "Hey, Michael, what's up? How's the family?" But I'd pretty much write that. "Hey, Michael, hope you and the family are excited about summer. Any fun trips planned? The market is hot, so reach out if you have any questions. P.S. Let's grab a round of golf or a beer sometime soon. Carp." Right? I literally, people ask me all the time after my presentation, like, "Sean, what do you write about in these notes?" Like there's some secret little thing to write about. And I literally just write about life because as they're reading it, they're in their head saying, "We're going on vacation. Our kids are playing softball, whatever it might be." And it's just that, "Thank you for writing me the note." This past Monday, I have a big bucket full of like Sharpie colored markers. And so I kind of just artistically wrote the word "enjoy summer" in big print. ENJ and the Y were in green. And then I put the O was a sun, right? And then summer was written in orange with yellow highlights. So it looked like a blazing sunshine or something like that. And that left me a little bit of space at the bottom of the card where I just put, "Michael, hope all is well. Let's catch up soon. Sean." Right? Something just simple, a little piece of art, whatever. I can't tell how many times people will take a picture of my little drawings and put it on Facebook or Instagram saying like, "Love getting notes from Sean. Walks the walk, talks the talk." And then like 4 people will comment underneath saying like, "Yeah, I got a note from him the other day." So I just think people don't overthink it. Get in their mailbox, handwrite the envelope. People are going to read it. It's going to mean something because we all know a handwritten note, someone took time out of their day to appreciate, thank, acknowledge. And I love writing them that sometimes I just get into it. I might write 5 or 10 a day if I'm on a little nice tear.
If you're on a streak. Yeah. And where my mind's going with this is I'm thinking through the previous handwritten cards that I've gotten, even yours, for example. I can't tell you one word that you had written in the last card that you sent me, but I can tell you the feeling I have inside of me when I think of Sean Carpenter. And that's because of the note. So even what you're putting in the note, in a sense, as long as you're coming from just, a helpful, happy place, what you say is probably not going to be remembered in that note, but how you made that person feel, how the note made the person feel is really what we're after.
Yeah. Here's a quick example of the impact it might have. So I was sitting there thinking like, who in my life did something for me yesterday that I can send a handwritten note to? This was years ago. I handwrote a note to Kelly. Kelly's my barber, right? And the note, basically I'm paraphrasing now, but it basically just said, "Kelly, I just want to say thank you for always being there for a quick chat or a quick haircut. You talk to lots of people's backs of heads, but please know we're listening," right? See you next time, right? I went in the barbershop a couple weeks after that note was sent. It's taped up on his mirror where he basically looks at his customers through that mirror, and it's right there in the corner. So every single person comes in there, sees that note. Now it doesn't say, "Use me for real estate needs, refer me." It just is a note that he felt, this is cool. And I'm going to put it up on the mirror so other people maybe who feel the same way see it. And if they don't, maybe they appreciate it. Like little things like that. Here's a fun one, guys, that you can do. When my clients or sphere of influence members have a baby, right? And I see on Facebook, they brought their baby home and they got the baby home. I deliver a little onesie. It's got the state of Ohio, and instead of OHIO, it says HOME. It says home on it, right? So they get a little onesie for the baby that says home. But I bring it in a little gift bag. The onesie's wrapped up, and then inside is a handwritten note to the baby. So it's addressed to little Megan or little Michael, right? And here's what the note says. It says, "Dear Michael, welcome home. I think you're going to like it here. This is your first official piece of junk mail from a realtor. When your parents are ready for a new crib, have them call me, Sean."
Oh, that's so funny.
That's all I send. I don't put anything in there for the parents. Sometimes I'll bring a separate thing for the parents, a 6-pack of beer for the dad, or a book for the mom, or flowers for the mom. But I've had people call me and say, "Sean, that was adorable. Do we have your permission to put that card in her baby book or in his baby book?" Now think about that. It was kind of a funny one-off thing. I've sent notes to people's dogs, addressed notes to handwritten notes to people's dogs, saying, welcome to the neighborhood, things like that. And I just think it's impactful and memorable. And I hope someone steals that idea from me.
That's such a good idea. That's such a good idea. And playful, fun, shows some personality. And you're also in a sense that this is kind of the next direction I want to take it to is maybe it's handwritten cards, but not even handwritten cards, just generally speaking. How do you think through this agent reaching out to people, starting these relationships, and should they be bringing up real estate? How often should they be bringing up real estate? That's a very common question that we get is, how do I do it? Should I be doing it? Should I be asking for referrals all the time? How do you walk an agent through that conversation?
Yeah, I think here's what I'll say. You don't always have to talk about real estate, but you always have to be ready to talk about real estate. Right. So if I'm going to play golf with 3 buddies, I might just want to take 5 minutes before I leave the office to pull up their addresses and see if there's any new listings in their neighborhood. If I'm going to have cocktails with some friends, I might just want to look up in their neighborhood, has there been any recent sales in their neighborhood? So if it comes up like, hey, Sean, do you know what my neighbor's house sold for? I can say, I actually went for multiple offers. I understand, but it did sell for X over asking price, or it's still on the market, but they just had a price reduction. So I show my knowledge. I know some people probably think, well, that's kind of being creeper. You're kind of finding out information. I'm just making myself available and ready to know about what's coming up. I'm scouting the business, just like a scout in sports is going to do, right? I'm making myself ready. I think you can talk about real estate, Michael, without it being a real estate is my job conversation, right? Hey, Michael, you used to live on that side of town, right? I got to meet some clients there next week. We're looking for a spot to grab margaritas after our showings. Who's got the best margarita on that side of town? Mm-hmm. And what did I do? I told you I was showing houses over there, but I turned it into a area question, or I'm meeting clients for lunch. What do you recommend I take them? So I got the chance to drop in. I'm taking clients for lunch, or I'm going to a closing, or I have a listing at this side of town and I'm looking for a good vendor, or, so I can bring it up. I can talk globally. I can talk nationally. I can talk state down to the local marketplace, right? Different levels of conversation. I can ask them questions. What are you seeing?
I think the geography, though, that is a very powerful one, and one that tends to work really nicely. Like, you're showing homes in a community. Hey, I got a client who's looking to buy into your community. What are some of your favorite spots? Yeah. Hope you're doing really well. And you're not asking for business, but in a sense, you're letting people know that you're in the business. But you're not doing it with the intention of trying to seek a referral on every conversation. Like, a lot of your conversations, it feels like to me, the goal is to deepen the relationship, not necessarily to get a referral. The referral is just a natural progression of a deep relationship.
That's the long tail play that hopefully comes out of it. But it's I'm putting a lot of seeds in the ground and continuing to water them. It's the handwritten notes to my friend over years that eventually comes back and it pays me back. But what you just said to me really is a good idea I've never really thought of. But if we all live on one side of town, but we might work on all parts of town, right? But there's one that's the opposite side from us that we just don't get to very often. The next time I have a client looking, in Columbus on the east side of town, I might reach out to 5 or 6 people that live over there and say, hey, just met a new buyer, going to be looking over there. Can I ask you who your favorite barbershop, pizza shop, and drive-through is on that side of town, so that I can be a little more knowledgeable to drop in some local things that might help them. When you come into downtown, do you take 670 or do you take 270? What's the worst traffic intersection in that town that I need to avoid when I do my showings? Get them talking about where they live, because everybody wants to talk about what they know, right? And here's just a fact, Michael. People love to give referrals. They love to tell people about the new restaurant they went to, the new brewery they went to, the new golf course they played, the new movie they saw. We just got to give people more reasons to talk about things.
Yeah, exactly. And oftentimes I think that there's the whole Benjamin Franklin effect, right? Where when we ask somebody for some level of advice or we need something from them, they tend to think of us in a higher light. Like, they tend to like us more. And generally we think, I'm going to reach out to Sean. I'm going to ask him, what's your favorite pizza spot? And that's going to be an annoyance for Sean. But in fact, Sean's going to like you more when he's the one that's providing you with something. And a lot of times we talk ourselves out of it, when in fact it's actually going to make Sean like you more by you asking him a question.
Yeah. And then imagine if you told me of a pizza place, right? And then my client's closed on a property, and maybe I get them a little gift card as part of their closing packet to that pizza place. Wouldn't it be a smart idea to maybe spend another $20 to get a gift card for Michael to say, hey, hope you and your wife can grab a place. My clients loved it when they went there, right? Because then the next time I'm in town to maybe take my clients who just bought a house, I might say, hey, Michael, come, why don't you and your wife come out and have a beer with us? And you meet that people that just bought the house there or whatever, and just become that connector. You know, I go back to what I said earlier, the basics work.
The basics work. And your head is like, what I'm seeing is like, Sean, your head is like kind of always on a swivel. Like, how can I help? How can I connect? How can I be in touch with people? It's not like you're kind of just going out and doing real estate. Your radar's always on. The Sean Carpenter radar is always on for how can I connect and how can I deepen relationships? How can I delight other people?
How can I make my name show up top of mind so that when someone brings up real estate or, you know, this a big piece of one of the things I've been telling my audiences a lot lately is your brand is more than your brand, right? We all got to remember that your brand is more than your brand. Let me explain what I mean by that. I'm a realtor, right? Let's start very top level. I'm a member of the National Association of Realtors. I'm also with Coldwell Banker. That's my brand as well. But part of my brand is also Columbus, where I live. Columbus is in Ohio, so Ohio is part of my brand. Someone like you who's 2,000 miles away, you're going to maybe start with the Ohio part. But then when you say, Sean, you're in Ohio, right? I have a friend who's moving to Ohio. Are you near Cincinnati? No, that's about 100 miles away, but you at least got to me. Columbus becomes another piece. My brand is also the University of Florida, where I went to college. So I'm a Gator. So everyone who knows me knows I'm a Gator fan, right? So that's part of my brand. Now, once again, people are saying, Sean, what does that have to do with selling real estate? Well, if tonight you're watching, you know, the College World Series on ESPN and you see the Florida Gators are playing, you know, who they play? They play Texas A&M. You might say, oh, I bet Sean's excited about this game tonight, which means I just jumped in the top of your brain. But my brand is also golf, right? I play golf everywhere I go. I used to be a golfer. My son's in the golf business. So I want people to think of me when they think of golf. My brand is also craft beer. My brand is Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. See, that's all part of my brand. I want to ask the people listening to this, what's your brand? I'm not worried about the sign on the building where you work. I'm talking about when people think of you, do they think of a mom, a marathon runner, a veteran, a cancer survivor, a school teacher? Like, what is more? Yeah, you're a real estate agent with this company who likes making pasta and works at this charity. That's more reasons for people to think of you when they hear one of those things. Imagine a new pasta shop opens up and the first person they say is, Michael, have you been to this new pasta shop? That means they thought of you before they thought of 40 other people.
Yeah. Yeah, so. It's so true. And my mind is honestly right now, it's going to people in my network. And if something like that was to open, who would I reach out to? And like, for example, a pasta shop, there is somebody in my network. If that did actually open up in my neighborhood, there is somebody I know who is obsessed with pasta. And it's just, you're also putting yourself in that position to be that type of person.
You're looking for meaningful touches. That's something I learned from a mentor of mine early in the business. Meaningful touches is something like this. If you're on your next flight you're on and you pick up that little back of seat magazine from the airlines and you flip through it, you know, just to peruse it, and you see an article about Nashville is the hottest city in America right now. If you got a friend that lives in Nashville, take that magazine, send it to him with a Post-it note on the cover that says, was flying to Vegas for a conference, saw article on page 34, thought of you and Kathy. Hope life is good. Let's catch up soon. That's a meaningful touch. A meaningful touch is knowing your friend's kid is a Taylor Swift fan. And you see an article or a website or a link or a funny meme, and you send it to them saying, hey, show this to Megan. I think she'll like this article about the Taylor Swift Eras Tour. And your client's going to get that going like, Sean Carpenter sold us a house 13 years ago. And how do you remember our daughter's a Taylor Swift fan? Right? And it's those little tiny things. It's knowing who your favorite sports team is. It's knowing that you have a labradoodle. It's knowing these little things that all of a sudden those meaningful touches are just that, hey, I was thinking about you. Hope life is well. Yeah.
And that's truly where deals get done in real estate too, is based on these relationships. So let's pivot a little bit towards your 4-H club, because the 4-H's are very, very powerful. And it's a good framework for agents to start using if they want to start implementing what you're teaching here.
Yeah. So I said it earlier, cool thing about real estate is it's different every day. Bad thing is it's different every day. especially if you're coming from another career, knowing what to do every day in real estate is sometimes difficult when you're just starting out, or when you're super busy and you're too busy to put seeds in the ground. Well, eventually when those deals close, you've got to go back to square one and start over again. So you want to constantly be doing this. So when I left the director of training role with our company, I knew that August 1st of that year, I was an employee. August 2nd, I was back to being an independent contractor. I was back to being a farmer that had to put seeds in the ground. So I came up with a way that would allow me to put seeds in the ground every day. I call it my 4-H club. Very simple. The first H is I do 5 handwritten notes. That's the first H, is handwritten notes. I try and do 5. If you aren't doing any handwritten notes, start with 1 a day. Start with 1 a week, right? And you'll find out they're pretty simple and they're effective. The second H, Michael, is the hot sheet. All right, I go into my MLS, my local MLS, and I run the hot sheet for what's the newest listings, the coming soons, the new listings, the price changes, the in contracts, the pendings, the closings, sometimes the expireds or cancels. I look at that twice. I look at the first time as a realtor with my realtor hat on to see what new listings are hitting in my market, what price changes, what activity. And then I look through the second time and I say to myself, do I know anybody that lives within a couple blocks of that property or in that subdivision or in that gated community or in that, a lot of our towns have specific parts of town. If I do know someone, then they're going to get a text message, a phone call, or an email through the MLS that just says, hey, Michael, just want to let you guys know about this new listing in your neighborhood. Let's grab a beer sometime soon. Or, hey, Michael, this house I told you about 3 weeks ago is now in contract. Not sure what it's sold for. I'll keep my eyes open. P.S. See you at the golf course this weekend. Like, I'm not trying to sell the property. All I'm trying to do is make sure that when you think of real estate in your neighborhood, Michael, you think of me. The third H is happy birthdays. I go into Facebook, see which of my friends are having birthdays today. I'll comment on their wall, leave a little a message wishing them happy birthday. Or if they're close friends of mine, which I know you've received these, I'll send them a video text message. Right?
So amazing.
Message where I am just going to open up the text. Close to me means their phone number is in my phone. They get a video text message, which literally is just camera, and it's like, Michael, hey, it's Sean Carpenter over in Columbus, Ohio. Hey, buddy, just want to send a quick video to say happy birthday. Hopefully life is treating you well and you get lots of love and attention from your friends and family. Hope you have a great year ahead. And as always, keep building relationships, solving problems, and having fun. And I hit send. Right? It's literally almost the same thing every time, but it's personalized to whoever you are. I might mention, if I was sending it to you, I might, throw a little shout out in there to the Edmonton team or whatever, whatever. I would personalize it. I can't tell how many times people get those messages and they say, Sean, hundreds of messages today, you're the only video text message I get. Or look forward to your message every year. Then the fourth H, the last H, is what I call my high fives. All right, I'm on Facebook, usually for the first time of the day to check my birthdays. And I'm going to do 5 likes on Facebook. Just going to scroll through my feed and do 5 likes. I'm going to do 5 comments on Facebook. I'm going to do 5 comments on Instagram, either on the posts or on the stories. I'll do 5 comments or retweets on Twitter, my favorite social channel. And I'll do 5 text messages. 5 people on my phone are going to get a have an awesome day, a funny GIF, a funny meme, just a quick message. And then once I put my seeds in the ground, I go get my morning coffee.
Yeah.
That's my reward for putting seeds in the ground. Now think about this. Let me go back and rewind. If I do 5 handwritten notes a day, let's say 2 people on the hot sheet that I talk to. Let's say 13 people on Facebook for birthdays, and then 25 high fives because it's 5, 5, 5, 5, 5. Michael, that's 45 people that are hearing from Sean Carpenter before 9 o'clock in the morning. 45 people that have my name going across the top of their mind or the top of their screen. And how many of those were real estate specific? Only 2. Only the hot sheets where I was just letting you know, but they weren't even a sales pitch. It was just an informational message about something relevant to you and your neighborhood. 45 a day. Let's just say I do that 5 days a week. That's 235 people that are hearing from Sean Carpenter before 9 o'clock in the morning. Now, because of the way it's done is you might get a handwritten note from me on Monday from last week. I might comment on your Facebook post today. You might get an update about something in your neighborhood on Thursday. But what do you say? You don't say, oh my God, that's the 3rd time Sean Carpenter's reached out to this household in a week. You say, wow, Carp is showing up in my life all over the place. Right? I got a handwritten note from him wishing my kid good luck in the soccer tournament. I got he made a great comment on my Instagram post the other day, and he just let me know about a listing in my neighborhood. At no point do you go, this guy is bothering the hell out of me.
Never.
Right? So It's just, once again, it's the doing it without the intent of getting business from it that over time you get business from it.
Exactly. That's a really good way to put it. And when I think of like traditional prospecting, and what you picture is somebody sitting at their phone, or they have a list of phone numbers and they're just banging out dials. And you contrast that with what you're suggesting here. You're making 45 touches in a very personal, you're not pushing anything. You're just basically making 45 people's day is really what you're doing. And you're doing that constantly and over again, and reaching over 200 a week. When you're going through the 4-H club, I'm not thinking that, holy smokes, this is like going to take me all day. And the interesting thing that you say too is then you go for your coffee. This isn't like this is a 4-hour process for you. You're doing this, probably getting the computer at 8 in the morning, and then you're going to get your coffee at 9, and you've already
none of these
had
are interrupting
45
calls. They're not. I'm not going to pick up the call and cold call someone's house at that time of day. The video text messages are going to come in. They're going to open it as they see fit. But yeah, 45 minutes to an hour. And I'll be honest with you, Michael, there are some days where I'm a little groggy. I'm a little excited. I might do my high fives at the coffee shop.
Sure.
Right? I'll do the first 3. I'll go to the coffee and I'll sit there with my Starbucks or my Dunkin', and I'll pound out my Timmy's if I'm up north, right? I'm going to go in and I'm going to pound out my likes on Facebook and my comments on Facebook. And it's okay. Sometimes I might do 20 likes. I might do 40 comments. Right? I might do some cut and paste comments to people. Congrats on the Boston Red Celtics win last night. Congrats on the Celtics win last night. Congrats on the Celtics win last night. A couple people might get that. Plus maybe an extra sentence of, do you think they clinch it tomorrow night? Or whatever. But those are the personal touches that, because I have this database and I know who fans are and where they're from, and I've got all these reasons to talk to them. Right? So
yeah, there's a system to it, but there's also just you're just always on the lookout for how you can connect with people and have people connect.
I have 5 people I'm thinking of right now as I talk. 5 people. They're all other realtors that live within, if they're not local, they live within a probably 10-mile radius of Pinehurst, North Carolina, where the U.S. Open's being played right now as we speak.
Yep.
I will probably text all 5 of them tonight. Just says, how was the first day? What's the experience like? How's traffic? No, they're not going to buy a house from me. But what if someone's moving to Columbus, Ohio?
Yeah.
What if someone's moving from Columbus to Pinehurst, North Carolina, and they meet them in an open house and say, wow, do you know Sean Carpenter? And they say, don't know him. And they say, well, he's the guy you got a list with back there, right? It's those little conversations, those little touches, right? Those, for you, who are your Edmonton Oilers fans that you can reach out to and say, man, I hope they can do it tonight, because it changes the series if they do it tonight. Maybe we're dating ourselves on this recording, but hopefully they.
Well, yeah. After it comes out, we might know the result of Boston Celtics and Edmonton Oilers. But we're hopefully there's no sweeps across the board for all.
But you get my point. It's finding reasons to talk to things that are personalized to people, so that once again the brand is more than your brand, and go from there.
Yeah, the brand is more than the brand. Sean, thank you so much for coming on. Now, I know that you do coaching, you do training, you do speaking at the board level and at brokerage level. How can people best reach out to you if they want to learn a little bit more about your process and potentially have you come speak?
Well, they're going to see me on social media. I'm at Sean Carp on Twitter, also known as X, and Instagram. At Sean Carp. You can find me on Facebook, I'm sure. Type in Sean Carpenter. But go to SeanCarpenter.com, or my blog, Michael, is called Carp's Corner. CarpsCorner.net is the blog, but you go to SeanCarpenter.com, spelled S-E-A-N. Carpenter is probably in the show notes. I've been blogging, Michael, my last blog I blog every Monday morning. So I blog on Sunday night, gets your mailbox on Mondays. My last blog I wrote was number 1253.
Really? And
Yes.
you never miss a Monday. And I'll say, sign up for Sean's email list, because every Monday you get this beautifully written short blog that
It's a
touches
story.
on these topics.
It's an inspiration. It might be a quote. It might be a song lyric. It might be a story about sports. But it's going to be about building relationships and solving problems and having fun. And it's just, I call it my Monday morning match, because it's just designed to give a little spark to your week. Maybe light a little fire under your ass and get you to do some work. And so go there. You can probably connect with me if you got an event. I do about 50 speaking gigs a year across North America. Keynote addresses, educational classes, motivational, inspirational conversations about customer service and about taking care of your clients and about growing your business. And so I don't do a lot of the boilerplate, fair housing, ethics, CE classes. I do, hey, let's get our company, let's get our office, let's get our brand fired up to do the things that it takes to be successful in this business. So we started with it. I'll end with it. The basics work, right?
The
Let's get
basics
back
work.
to the basics again and again and again. And then like on the shampoo bottle, lather, rinse, repeat.
I love it. I love it. We'll leave it at that. Sean, thank you so much for coming on.